So, good afternoon, good morning. Y'all, I'm here with a dynamic group of individuals. We got the one and only Dr. Kanisha Moore. I know her as Kay, but I'm gonna say Dr. Kanisha because I don't want no smoke. She worked hard for them letters behind her name. And then, of course, the one and only Kia Valentine. But this is like my big sister. So now Dr. K, Dr. Moore. If you see Kia get on me, it's just she getting on her little brother. I'm in trouble all the time, so
I
I'm
know.
used to
I've
it.
known you for a while. I know.
You know, I guess some things don't change. I guess uh, but I'm so excited. We're gonna talk about a space and a career pathway that you all have some valuable experience, some knowledge, in this the world of psychology, right? We got students, this whole So You Want to Be platform is geared towards, those high school juniors and seniors, but primarily those college students who are getting ready to pick, they're exploring their careers and majors. And somebody says, I want to get into psychology. And they say, hey, I like it. I want to help people. I'm going. And that's as much information as they have, right? But we want to create this platform and this vehicle, this program, so that they are informed, right? Because I know there are some things that you wish you would have known, wish someone would have told you before you got into that space. And that doesn't mean it necessarily would have changed what you've done, but you probably would have moved a little more intentionally if you had more information. So that's what we hope to bring out on today's session of So You Want to Be in Psychology. But let's kick it off with letting the people know who you ladies are. And we got one more panelist that'll be joining us. But Dr. Barber, kick it off with you. Can you introduce yourself to the people? Let them know who Dr. Kanisha Moore is.
Absolutely. Well, like Jeremy said, my name is Dr. Kanisha Moore. I typically go by Dr. Kanisha Lashante Moore because I want people to know exactly who I am before I walk into the space. My parents gave me that name for a purpose, and there will be no questions about who you're going to see when I walk in. And I do that intentionally because there aren't very many people who look like me in the position that I'm in. But I am born and raised right here in Memphis, Tennessee. Graduated from Ridgeway High School. I ain't gonna tell you what year because I don't want to age myself. But I graduated with my bachelor's degree from Spelman College in psychology on a pre-med track. Moved home back to Memphis. I had my master's in clinical mental health counseling from the University of Memphis. And I finished my PhD from the University of Memphis as well in counseling psychology. And I currently work as the training director for behavioral health with Christ Community Health Service. Oh, and I'm a licensed psychologist. I got to put that part out
So from Memphis to Atlanta, back to the L.
there.
And you said make sure you put that. You said Lashante.
Lashante.
Hey, you look, make sure you put that L. That look, it
Put
ain't
that
just that.
there.
Lashante let you know.
That's
All
right.
right.
That's right.
Oh, nah, so awesome. Welcome. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. Because I know look, you can be seeing clients right now, so we thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to connect and share your knowledge. Next, I'm gonna pass it to Kia. How you doing, Kia?
I am doing well. Little brother, how are you? I am
I'm
not
on
going
my
to give
best
you
behavior.
very good. I promise I'm not going to give you a hard time. So, my name is Kia Valentine. I'm going to be the kind of alternative route in this discussion today because I am not a psychologist by trade or social worker by trade, but I do work in that space. So, a little bit about me very quickly. I am a native New Yorker and I am a transplant to the Memphis area. However, I've been here for about 9 years now. I went to Virginia Commonwealth University. I got my bachelor's degree in forensic science with minors in chemistry and biology. And I went on to get my master's after working for a while in healthcare administration. So now, where does that intersect with psychology, social work? That right now, I'm working as the director for both clinical and research psychology at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. So I am surrounded by psychologists every day, all day. So I can bring the kind of information from the business side of working in psychology and students that may be interested in working in, that space, the business of healthcare, so to speak.
Nah, that's perfect. And Kia, that's one reason why we wanted to have you on this space is because we want students to know that there are so many different pathways to get to where you want to work, right? You got the practitioners, but you support the practitioners from a different level and you see it from a totally different lens. And, bringing those different worlds together is truly what makes, this panel unique. So I definitely want to thank you for your time. I know you work with some of the best and brightest across the world at your employer. So thank you so much for your time. So we got again, like I said, we got Dr. Jeremy Whitaker who will be jumping on here in a few, and we'll allow him to introduce himself. But let's kick it off. Like, how did you get into? Well, I guess before you got into it, is the world of psychology what you thought it would be when you first found out about it? Because when people think psychology, they think counseling, they think therapy, right? When you first thought about this space before you kind of uh, got into it fully, what did you think about the world of psychology? I see them eyes going up. What part I want to share?
Well, I can start that off because I can come from an angle of I needed to learn. I wanted to know more. I was very interested in psychology in undergrad. I was a forensic science major. Forensic psychology actually was a thought process for me, like, hey, how can I go into that? And I know that that would have been more medical school. That would have been psychiatry. So to answer your question, what did I think it looked like? What a lot of students possibly think. It's so multifaceted, it's actually a little confusing for those who don't know. So even now, I'm educating people that we have psychiatry and we have psychology. Those are two different things, two different paths.
Mm.
And where I'm in psychology, although under the business side of that, even within that, we have neuropsychology, and then we have pediatric health psychology, and those are different aspects of psychology. So, and we actually, in our hospital, I think we are the second largest department as far as the number of trainees. So we have undergraduate students that come in as interns. We have master's level students. We have doctoral students. So they're considered postdocs if they've already received their doctorate degree. So a lot of these students come in and they're trying to get additional experience, specifically in some form of pediatric psychology, pediatric health psychology, or neuropsychology with an emphasis on pediatrics. And it is a learning process because I would recommend for students to do some research. There's so many tools and resources out there. Find out what's the difference between psychology and psychiatry. What's the difference between therapy and counseling? What are the different types of social work? Because there are so many avenues, and you really can pair what you're interested in and where you think you want to work. You can kind of create that opportunity. So while I was forensic science and I thought I was interested in forensic psychology at some point, it's very interesting to many, many years later, because I also won't say when I went to college, many years later, work in something that's almost tangential to what I initially thought of. And it all came, and maybe this will come up later, it came through research. Well, what exactly is this? What side of the house is this type of psychology? So, yeah, it looks like anything and everything that you could imagine possible.
Mm. Look, that's a lesson in itself. You just gave me psychology, psychiatry, therapy, counseling, social. I thought all that was the same.
It's not. And so when I think about my journey to psychology, so when I was in undergrad, I was actually a biology major. So I wanted to be a reconstructive surgeon. I wanted to fix cleft palates. And then while I was doing my studies, I realized I hate this. I hate this. I don't understand what my professors are saying. I'm just a little girl from Memphis. I can't understand these people. I don't know. This is a lot for me right now. And so I took psychology as an elective and fell in love with it. And so second semester, sophomore year, I changed my major. I took psych pre-med. And so going in, when I thought of psychology, I just thought, oh, I'm going to help people because studying psychology will help me understand why people act the way they do. And really, I thought that was just like the gist of it. And I thought in undergrad that once I finished with my bachelor's, then I can go on and I could start doing therapy. And I was 100% incorrect because there's not much you can do as far as practicing in the field with a bachelor's degree in psychology. And so then I taught for a while. And while I was teaching, I went and got my master's. And while getting my master's, I started learning more about the counseling side of things. So, like how to work with people in doing counseling, helping people understand aspects about themselves, learning all of these different theories. And so, in undergrad, you think, okay, you hear about Sigmund Freud. That's about as far as you get. And then you go into counseling, and then you're like into your master's, and you're like, okay, it's a whole lot of these people. So many of these theories. How do I know which one is the right one? How do I know when to use it? And then you start practicing during your practicums, and you realize, wait a minute, it's a lot harder to help people than what I thought when I was in undergrad. It's so much more than just sitting in front of somebody and saying, so tell me how that makes you feel. It's far more than that. It's really a science and it's an art to this science. And you really have to understand the world of psychology. You have to be knowledgeable of the DSM and you have to attend to the person that's in front of you. So it's so many things. And so I was like, okay, I have this master's degree. And if anybody knows me, they know that I like nice things. And to have nice things, you got to, make a bag. Um, and when you first get your master's in counseling, your bag ain't gonna be very big. And so I didn't learn that until I was towards the end of getting my master's degree. And I said, oh no. I said, oh no, my bag is bigger as a teacher and with a bachelor's. And here I am with a master's degree. And no, I don't like that. So I started exploring other options. And at first, I actually landed on industrial organizational psychology, which is like the business of psychology. So it's like the psychology of business, understanding business practices. And most people who go that route become consultants for large organizations. Um, but so I leaned into that a little bit. And then one of my advisors from a master's program, she was like, Anisha, apply for the counseling psychology program. I was a little leery. I said, girl, I don't know. I don't know if I want to, do that. That seems like a lot. But then I considered all the extra supervised therapy hours that I would need to become a licensed counselor and how many years that would take. I said, I might as well go ahead and get a PhD. So I did. I got into the counseling psychology doctoral program. It was much harder than I had expected. Um, it was just you learn so much more. You really learn more about the science of psychology. You start learning about providing assessments and what those different things mean. In the master's program, when you do counseling, you don't necessarily give people diagnoses. But then when you get on the psychology side of things, then you give diagnoses, you do assessments, you come up with all these different treatment plans and things of that sort. So it was just so much more that went into it. At the end of the day, it's still about helping people understand themselves, but it comes with so much more. And there's this vast knowledge of the brain that you have to understand, of different psychotropic medications that you have to understand, of our diagnostic manual that you have to understand. And then it's this really big exam that you got to pass to get licensed to even be able to help the people that you hope to help. So, long story short, I went into it thinking I could just ask people how they're doing and how that makes them feel and tell them, you got it, you're going to be okay. And that I would be a psychologist. And I learned from experience that it's so much more than that. It was a long journey, many years of schooling. So it takes, 4 years of undergrad, 2.5 years of a master's program. And then the route I took with my PhD was the 3+1. So 3 years of coursework, 1 year of internship, 2 years of postdoc, studying for the licensure exam, then getting licensed, and now you can finally practice. So that's a lot of you. That's like all your youth, all of your 20s are taken, and then once you hit about 32, then you can start living. But I didn't think it took any of that when I first was interested in psychology, and I learned that it does. It was well worth it, though. I will say that.
Look, you gave us our first social media post. You know, we gonna let students know that it's so much more than how you feeling, and you got this, right? And then you said the 3+1+2, so you almost had to do 6 years. That's after your bachelor's and master's.
That was after my master's. So
Lord,
yeah,
Lord.
so it's six
That,
and a half years for bachelor's and master's, and then as a route I took, most people don't because it's like it's it's expedited, so you have much more in a shorter amount of time. I would not recommend. I actually recommend people do the 4+1 because you'll save yourself a lot of trouble. But yeah, so it was 3 years of coursework, 1 year internship, 2 years postdoc. So then it's 6 additional years to the 6.5 that you've already done. So it's about 12 years
mm,
to become a licensed psychologist.
okay. We're gonna come back to that because we gotta put some definitions to this. But we just got Dr. Jeremy Whitaker just popped in as well. Dr. Whitaker, look, can you let the people know who one of my mentors, an individual that I admire? Can you let them know that who is Dr. Jeremy Whitaker, aka Dr. J?
All right, man. Don't start with the AKAs already on
Okay, yo,
the
sorry, I'm sorry. You know
yeah,
what?
definitely. So, definitely, thanks for having me. Always great to connect and support the mission of STS. Love what you guys continue to do in the community to make impact and change lives. Dr. Moore, Mr. Valentine, great to connect with you guys as well to make that impact today. Um, you know, Jeremy, in short, I think Dr. Moore really hit it on the head when she said helping people. And that's what my life's work at this point has been dedicated to, and I love. And so I get a great opportunity to do that in a multitude of ways, in different areas. One is in higher education leadership within the college space, which, as you guys know, after listening to Dr. Moore talk about all that schooling and how much it takes in the years, you need support along those journeys to attain that. And I'm very fortunate to have a platform here in the university within my city I grew up in, the University of Memphis, to make that impact, specifically within the College of Nursing, which is the largest undergraduate program in the state, by far one of the most diverse in the nation. And in my role, I serve as the Associate Dean for Student Success and a graduate professor here. And I provide oversight for all enrollment, student success, wellness initiatives, community engagement, just the full wraparound support what it takes for students at all levels, whether it's an undergrad student or, as Dr. Moore just mentioned, a graduate student who has a completely different approach and a completely different mindset of where they're trying to get, but making sure they have that support they need to be successful and reach their end goal. So that's one hat that I enjoy, and it's been very fulfilling to be back in my hometown after leaving for quite some time to make that impact there. Partnering with you guys at STS, got on and saw Dr. Moore. I remember she came to the etiquette session for one of those groups we work with. Shout out to you. Appreciate that. They still talk about that. And it's been great to do that type of work. On the flip side of that, outreach wise, I get a chance to work with the Assess Build Connect Foundation, better known as ABCs of Life. For nearly about 30 years now, we've been able to impact individuals and families in our community that have some form of disability, whether it's physical, mental, behavioral health, to help them simply live the most independent and productive life as possible. And we do that in a wraparound approach way. That's with providing, resources to help eliminate barriers like transportation. So we do everything from non-emergency. When you think about people going to and from doctor's appointments, if they're going to see a psychologist, psychiatrist, or just to seek physical help, we provide that level of transportation through insurance companies, and then sometimes directly private paid at an affordable rate if we know that's a need. And then outside of that, we partner with employment, placement, and readiness. Oftentimes, we refer clients to the state of Tennessee and various other government entities we partner with that we help provide job readiness, work readiness, and then we help place them in jobs. And for me, that's outside of the university probably been the most fulfilling things I've enjoyed doing over the past 4 or 5 years that I've been involved with the foundation is watching individuals with disabilities realize that a disability does not equate to inability. And we want to support them and give them access to that. We've been fortunate to grow our employer partner network with various community employers who give these individuals and families opportunities. And keep in mind, sometimes it's devastating work that's connected to what we call the 8 dimensions of wellness, which we can unpack that a little bit later, of that whole person. But we've watched individuals who were fully sighted like we are now, who unfortunately might have had a health condition like an optic nerve or something happened. And now this gentleman was completely blind a year later. But he's a father of 3. He has to provide. So to watch him go from, hearing about how he felt when he was a mechanic before, being able to provide, had his own shop, to now I can't even see in front of me to walk to the bathroom. And that level of kind of mental transition and emotional wellness, to us working with him, helping him partner with some other resources and partners to get mobility training. Then to partner with Amazon, who actually hired him to work in their fulfillment center, gave him a great pay rate. Now he's been there a year now working and feeling productive, independent, providing for his children again. Just removing barriers, providing support and hope, but that wraparound support really has been life-changing. Here recently, we did our numbers. We just actually eclipsed a tad bit over 100 placements that we've done in the past 2 years of individuals with disabilities that are now working in the field, being productive and feeling a sense of independence. So I really have enjoyed that. Also being involved with various other aspects of mental health, specifically athletes, sharing my personal journey as a former student athlete in that transition. And it can be dark. And we see many athletes battle with self-identity, substance and alcohol abuse, promiscuity, you name it, still chasing that raw of what you once had. And so really being an agent of change in that when it comes to certifying coaches, players, and family members in something that's a certificate called Mental Health First Aid. I'm pretty sure Dr. Moore's heard of it, Ms. Valentine as well. We equip them with not having to be the expert or the professional, but being able to recognize those signs and symptoms and refer them to a Dr. Moore to get that help that they may need. And I think I hopped on when you were talking about the journey to this. I would be remiss if I did not recognize who introduced me to this, and that is from my heart, which is my mother. My mother is a psychologist. I grew up in social work, coming on a Sunday to the kitchen table, eating with people that I did not know were my mom's even clients, but they were god sisters and godparents and people that I didn't even know, that they were no longer on her caseload, but they didn't want to let her go because of the impact she had made in their lives. And to this day, she still has continued to make that impact. And so for me, I learned from her 2 things. What comes from the heart truly reaches the heart when it's genuine. And then secondly, the body's unable to go where the mind cannot take it. So sometimes you have to pause and take a checkup from the neck up to be able to really take care of yourself and impact the lives of others. So in short, man, that's who I am in my core. And I've been fortunate and blessed to have some mentors, friends, and colleagues like you who partner in doing this work to changing lives beyond ourselves.
Man, look, I'm telling you, look, one, thank you so much for that. Doing it in 3 ways of higher education and outreach and in athletics. And I just want to stop and give you all your props because I'm just hearing the different intersectionalities and the different lanes that each of you work in. One, again, if you ask a student when they think about psychology and think about therapy, counseling, just what you all have shared in these first 20 minutes lets you know how broad and how wide this industry, this space is. And post COVID, mental health, it's not only become a buzzword, but it's now has been integrated into our day-to-day lives. How you checking in, and you all have just opened up. I want to say like we can go down a rabbit hole through so many of the things that you all have mentioned. So thank you so much for sharing your pathways to how you got there, and hopefully for the students that watch this, it's giving it. Hopefully those wheels start turning, right? But I do want to ask this just to break it down, right? Because you mentioned psychology, psychiatrist, therapy, counseling, social work. How are they different? Like, talk us through for the person, for that freshman that's like, hey, I just heard of psychology. Y'all done gave me 4 different words. Like, what are the difference? Like, what's the difference between those 5: psychology, psychiatrist, therapy, counseling, social work? And if there's another one that goes along with it, please add it. But how should they think about those as it relates to their career path and what they they focus on.
I could
I
take that
can.
one.
Good.
Oh.
No, I was gonna actually give you a really good layup, like a very easy layup, because you mentioned a lot of it. And it's gonna come down to years of education. That's a big component. But obviously, it also comes down to what it is that you want to do and how you want to practice and how you want to help others. So really, because I am not, by trade a psychologist, I was just going to provide that layup to Dr. Moore because she did mention some really interesting and important components of the differences between those different areas.
Yes, that's very, very true. So years of schooling is important. So when we think of social work, we think of really tending to those social determinants of health. So, like things that may get in the way of people being okay. So, whether it's something like transportation, food insecurity, housing insecurity. So, people who have a degree of work, their counseling or their work with patients tends to focus on those areas. And within social work, you have two different license distinctions. So you have an LMSW, which is a licensed master social worker, and then you have your LCSW, and that's a licensed, I think it's clinical social worker. And oftentimes, your clinical social workers supervise your LMSWs, but both of their work tends to be similar. And then you move on to someone who has like a master's degree in counseling. And so they will be an LPC, which is a licensed practicing counselor. And so those people provide like counseling or psychotherapy. So they come in and they really focus on mental health. So things dealing with like your affect, you like with the way that you feel, the ways in which you're thinking and how these things are impacting your behaviors. And maybe you've gone through some things in your past and you think that they're impacting the way that you move now. Your licensed counselor will provide psychotherapy, and that'll pretty much be the focus of their work. And then you have your licensed psychologist, and your licensed psychologist also conducts psychotherapy. But in addition to that, we have the ability to conduct assessments and we provide diagnoses. So if someone believes their child is autistic or is on the spectrum, they can go see a psychologist, and only a psychologist legally is supposed to conduct assessments. Now, it happens sometimes where some people go to LPCs for assessments. That's unethical, that's illegal, that's not supposed to happen, but your licensed psychologists do all of those assessments. And so you even have psychologists who have a focus on neuropsych. So they may do things like related to cognitive impairment, but they'll give those kinds of assessments. And then you have your psychiatrist. And so your psychiatrist is a medical doctor. So a licensed psychologist, they hold a PhD or a PsyD, but a psychiatrist is a medical doctor and they provide prescriptions. And so, like in the work that I do here, we have an interdisciplinary team. And so we do lots of consulting. And so let's say I'm working with a client. I'm the licensed psychologist. I'm working with this client. I notice this client is dealing with major depressive disorder and generalized anxiety disorder. I'll talk to their medical doctor and I'll say, this person is dealing with this thing. I believe an SSRI would be helpful. And that's a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, an antidepressant, anti-anxiety medication. Their medical doctor will then say, okay, and they will write the prescription for the medication. So as a psychologist, I can't write the prescription, but the medical doctors, which is what a psychiatrist is, they can. And so oftentimes when people meet with psychiatry, psychiatrists also can do psychotherapy. They don't typically do psychotherapy. They'll come in, they'll check in, they'll see how things are improving, they'll see if anything's different in your life, they'll check in on the medication, see how the medication is working, either refill your prescription or give you another med. And so that's what your psychiatrist, as well as your psychiatric nurse practitioners, they can do that also. So it looks different. So, of course, with medical school, that's a lot of different schooling. Getting a PhD or a PsyD, that's different schooling. The licensed counselors, they have master's degrees, and sometimes they also have PhDs, but it'll be like in counselor education. And with counselor education, they can then educate other people on how to become a counselor. They can work in administrative roles, but that doesn't allow them the ability to provide assessments and things of that sort too. So the roles are different. some of the responsibilities that we have are different, and that all of us have a different licensing body. So your social workers, they have the social work board. Your counselors, they have ACA, which is the American Counseling Association, and then psychologists have APA, which is the American Psychological Association. So all of us answer to different boards. We all hold different licenses. There's different level of schooling, different letters behind everybody's name, and different abilities that people can have based on the license that they hold. So they are all very different.
If I would add anything to, and you wrote that down. You wrote that down. Anybody got anything they want to add to that?
What she said.
What she said? Look, I said, you know what? I said, that's why she Dr. Moore. She wrote all that down. Roles, licenses, schooling. So one thing that I saw, I'm gonna just break it down if I can regurgitate what you said to the students. So that you said there are different levels. So level one is social work, and the levels don't necessarily are less valuable. Like they all play a part in providing holistic support. But you said social work, then you said counseling, then you said psychology, then you said psychiatrist, and with the psychiatrist being the medical doctor, the psychology, psychotherapy, they do the assessments, the diagnosis, the counseling, they provide counseling, how you feeling, and how it impacts your current or future behaviors. And social work is those social determinants, transportation, things like housing, food insecurity, and all of that makes up this space. Wow, that's look. So hopefully, as students are hearing this, they're gonna hopefully one of those lanes catches their attention. But one thing you also mentioned therapy. So where does therapy fit into those four categories?
When you say where does therapy fit, explain that a little further. What do you mean?
So yeah, so when we first started, we said social work, counseling. When we said psychology versus psychiatrist, counseling versus therapy, and then we said social work. So where does therapy is that in alignment with counseling? Like where does for a person that says, "Hey, I want to do therapy," is that the same as counseling? Is that the same as social work? Like where does that fit into the person that says, "Hey, I want to be a therapist"?
Most people use those words interchangeably. They use them, to mean the same thing, and they can. But as a psychologist, I don't consider myself a counselor because I do far more than counseling. When I think of when I think of my work as a psychologist, I think more along the lines of psychotherapy. Um, and that's because I'm considering, it's a diagnostic experience. So you come in, you have concerns. Oftentimes, you're going to leave with the diagnosis, and then we're going to develop a treatment plan on how we can work towards remedying whatever is going on. That's psychotherapy. When it comes to counseling, they also have different types of treatment plans, but it just looks different. So it's not so much diagnostic in nature. And so people use the terms interchangeably. But from my perspective, I believe that your licensed psychologist conduct psychotherapy and that your counselors and your social workers are more so along a counseling realm. And that's my opinion, but I do know that most people use them interchangeably.
I
Gotcha.
have
Okay,
a
that makes sense. Go
Jeremy,
ahead, kid.
I was just gonna ask a quick question. I was also gonna ask when you mentioned therapy, were you thinking like you said, people use terms interchangeably, but when I hear therapy, because again, even within the hospital, a lot of times people don't know the difference between psychology and psychiatry and social work. So people will say, well, who do I go to uh, for therapy? And it depends, just as you mentioned. But a lot of times, I think people are talking about like talk therapy. I'm feeling a certain kind of way. I've just been having a hard time right now. My classes are really tough and I just want to talk. So they reference it as talk therapy. And a lot of times that's categorized under counseling. So I don't know if that may have been the type of therapy you were mentioning. And I know on college campuses within, student health services, typically they will have sessions that you can go to. Sometimes they even group sessions, group kind of talk therapy, and that would fall under counseling. For the organizations that I've been with, but I will definitely defer to Dr. Moore and Dr. Whitaker.
Gotcha. Okay. That's awesome. That's
I say,
awesome.
yeah,
Thank
I
you so
agree.
much for that.
I think, oh, I'm sorry, Jamie, I'm cutting you off.
I was just saying, I would say thank you. Thank you for that talk therapy. We gonna add it to our vocabulary list.
Because I'm happy you made that distinction. Because when I think about the work that I did at Texas A&M, we called our center CAPS, and it was counseling and psychological services. And so when people came in for talk therapy, that was the counseling. But when they came in to see, do I have ADHD? That was the psychological component, because then we would give them a battery of assessments, or we would give them some screeners to see if they needed a battery of assessments to get their diagnosis. So those things are a little different.
So, and I would just add to that, you ladies are spot on. And she mentioned on college campuses, you're right in that regard. And as we're talking to these students, I think it's important that they're exposed to all these different aspects and avenues because it's grown so much. And you think about therapy in general and the various forms of it. And one of the things, for example, that I'm seeing more common on college campuses nationwide is even in music departments. Our music department on this campus now has launched a whole initiative, Jeremy, towards music therapy. There's a course that breaks down hip hop and pop culture and connecting it to therapy. So just, I would encourage them, don't limit yourself. Don't put the possibilities anywhere within the box because now it's so many aspects and so many ways you can really be innovative to impact that overall wraparound support and holistic care that's needed.
Music therapy. Hey, music definitely will get you right. I
Yeah,
ain't gonna tell y'all what my music therapy is,
we're not
but
gonna start with
nah.
flies this morning. We know
Hey, man,
Friday
I'm happy
afternoon.
you said it. You know, hey, to each his own. This is the no judgment zone. No judgment zone. But let me ask you this: so for those students that are currently pursuing this, were there any classes, internships, experiential learning opportunities, volunteer opportunities that you would recommend them consider to kind of help them kind of navigate this space? Because you all named a number of lanes they can go or a number of paths they can consider. Like, what are some things they can start looking at now to help them kind of shape their decisions as they move forward to figure out what may be the best path for them based on what they desire to do?
I'll start off, just kind of laying some groundwork, ladies, and y'all help me out if you don't mind. Particularly for those who are in school um, at that college at the higher ed level. Depending on what degree program you're in, many of them now are requiring you to do an internship to get those required hours. We just wrapped up with two students at our foundation who came from the College of Health Sciences at the University of Memphis who had to do roughly about 120 hours. Uh, and so what I would say is, get exposed, but more importantly, have the courage to ask. Um, as Dr. Moore mentioned earlier, uh, while you're a student, take advantage of the opportunity of being exposed to as much as possible to navigate and identify what you know you might want to pursue, but also recognize what you know was a non-negotiable no for you. And understand that this work that we do, it is heart work from the heart just as much as it is hard work. But if you don't reach out, have the courageous conversations. I hear you say that all the time, Jeremy, about having courageous conversations of identifying people in this lane of work that inspire you, that you're interested in learning more about what they do day to day. Reach out, create a short list and a long list. If you're like me, I grew up in a household where, hey, sometimes no, and sometimes some words before no was said. But the reality is, you miss all the shots you don't take. So you have to have the courage to reach out to people. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, which if you're rocking with STS, I know you probably got one now, or you're going to have one soon, along with the updated headshots. They don't play any games at STS. But the reality is, you use those platforms, those network. The people who are on this panel right now, reach out. We can give you insight and connect you with other people that can give you direct insight if there's a specific area that you're interested in within the field. But I would encourage them to, one, I'd connect with your university resources because each college has a responsibility. It's a part of their accreditation. It's a part of their expected student outcomes to make sure students are prepared to do a couple of things. One, pass whatever licensure exam is connected to their program. And two, be competent to transition from theory and education to actual practice. But if you sit in silence and just check the boxes of passing, you will miss out on so many things that can really take you to that next level. And so in short, it's being courageous, not being afraid to hear the word no. That's okay. Because what I can share with you is along this journey, and Dr. Moore, Kia, maybe you can attest, I know Jeremy as well. Some of those people who said no or who did not respond to you at all, it's funny how it works because you see them along the journey sometime. And you don't have to remind them. Let the success remind them because they can become partners, colleagues, or you might sit on a panel with them one day, and that's even more funny, So it's all good, but be courageous enough to ask those questions, but be intentional. And I'll close before I transition over with these two things. When you connect with these potential mentors or potential people that you consider titans in the field that you want to connect with, be prepared. Just don't be in awe of the moment. I don't care if it's a Zoom meeting, it's for coffee. If you get 30 minutes to an hour of these people time, be prepared with real questions. And there's two questions you need to be prepared to answer at all times. That is, what are you doing or what are you trying to do? And how can I help? If you cannot answer those questions, it makes it difficult for anyone as a mentor or someone who has a limited amount of time to really help you because you don't even know. So be prepared, do that work. And now you guys have an advantage with things we didn't have when we were coming up as far as schooling and AI, you can put so much in to help you prepare for things. So use these resources to the best of your ability to help you prepare for where you're trying to go.
Absolutely, I agree with all of that. And I'm also thinking to connect with like the alumni associations with your school. I think about my alumni association. So I graduated from Spelman, and we have a pretty large Memphis network. And so we have a group me, and one of our recent graduates, she reached out in the group me, and she just said, "Hi, sisters. I'm interested in a future in psychology. Are there any sisters on the line who will be willing to talk with me?" And about 12 of us responded. And so you just never know who you actually are connected to if you don't ask. So you miss every shot you don't take, like you said. So just ask the question. And all of us were willing to meet with her. I met with her, we met for ice cream, and I just had a very candid conversation with her about, what it takes to get to this place. And then I even asked her, what do you want? Where do you see yourself? When you think of your ideal future, what is that? And then I was able to tell her whether or not going in this direction would help her, have reach those goals. But yeah, it's really important to connect with your alumni associations, have those questions, and know where you're trying to go. So that way they can provide that guidance to help you get there.
Everything they said. I don't want to echo everything that was just said for the sake of time, but it was that spot on. Go out and meet people. Utilize the resources that your university has. If they are having an information session, if they're having a meet and greet, anything like that, and it's within the department, like psychology or social work or whatever, go meet people and then follow up afterwards, and be prepared. I was trying to scribble some notes, but everything was spot on. Be prepared with questions that you want to ask. Because working professionals, we're all really busy, but we all want to give back and we all want to help. And especially think about the field that you're wanting to go into. This is a field that people want to help one another. So people will be very giving of their time and of their knowledge. Take advantage of that, but be prepared.
And I thought of one other thing I want to add that you just helped me with, Akia. Be aware of what, and Dr. Moore talked about this earlier, what national associations are connected with your field. And I think this is important to highlight, Jeremy, because oftentimes throughout your student experience, you think about, where you want to invest when you're going to take a trip. It's spring break, it's fun, it's all these things. It's it'll be great and to your advantage if you were to ensure that if you could invest in going to one of these professional association conferences, connecting, because you can connect then with other students across the nation that are interested, but also professionals who you can connect with that will pour into you and create opportunities. So maybe instead of taking that spring break trip to that destination beach, save those funds and allocate it towards the APA conference, because that can be game changing long term with that type of investment versus a week of fun in Florida, right? Like you'll have time, especially once, like you said, Dr. Moore, once you get that bag to that point. But on the front end, you can meet someone at the APA conference that will change the complete trajectory of what your post grad looks like, or even your summer, next summer, would look like. So know what associations and professional boards are connected to what you want to do, know where they will be, know how to get connected. And many times they offer discounts for students to come to those conferences, especially if you're willing to volunteer and work and do something like that at the registration table. Take full advantage of that because now people become invested in your growth. So I just wanted to point that out before we pivoted, Jeremy, because I think that's important as well. In those schools, if you get accepted to go to some of these conferences, say, for example, you want to do a poster presentation at one of these conferences, the school has allocated funding to support you when it comes to traveling. So hold them accountable because they are held accountable for making sure there's a successful outcome for every student. They're tracked by that. So hold them accountable to invest the resources they have in you as well.
And I'm so happy you said that, Dr. Whitaker. I think about the different opportunities I had while I was a student. So, one in the field of psychology, as a practicum, as a graduate student, you have to do practicums and internships. And so, in your master's, you will do practicums and then like a half semester internship. And then when you get to the PhD level, you also do practicums while you're in your program, and then you have to match to do your internship. But when you're doing all of these different practicum assignments, really take them seriously and make sure that you take advantage of the opportunities that come your way. And I say that because, so in 2019, it was 2019, 2020, I did a practicum for Christ Community. And while I was doing that practicum, their previous chair of behavioral health, she had moved to Methodist. But before she left, she had done some program evaluations for Christ Community. She had raw data and she wanted me to analyze that data, create a poster, and take that to a conference. Now, I'm going to keep it 100 with you. I am not a stats girl. I know the bare minimum. I know what I need to know. And for anything extra, I will hire a statistician because Dr. Moore can't do it. Not my thing. I can do some of it, but I prefer not. But anyway, she asked. I said, sure. Oh my God. And then while I was doing the data analysis, I was like, why on earth did I tell this lady yes? But I did it. I did it. I consulted with some of my cohort mates. I had one cohort mate who loves stats. That was her thing. She helped me through it, got it all done, created a poster. They paid for me to go to the Collaborative Family Healthcare Association conference. While I was there, I won an award for the data analysis and my poster that I presented. So I had the meritorious, I don't know how to say the word, student award. And so my poster won for first place. I got like a whole little ribbon. They paid for everything. And then, that was my practicum. I left there. I matched at A&M for internship, completed my internship. A&M offered me a job. But while I was working there, the lady who wasn't my chair, she wasn't my advisor because or my supervisor because she had gone to another organization, but she remembered the research we did together. She reached out to me on LinkedIn. She asked if I would Zoom her. So I Zoomed with her when I was home in Memphis during the holiday break, Christmas break. And she said, Kanisha, I have a job that I think you will be perfect for. I said, okay, well, talk to me. She talked to me. I said, okay, I think I could do that. It was a job paying me $30,000 more than what I was making in Texas, and it would bring me back home to my family. She offered me the job before I even applied for the job. So then I met with her. I applied. I did an interview with a few other people. And within a few months, I was back in Memphis making $30,000 more than what I was there. Fast forward, the position that I'm in now, the woman who was my supervisor when I was doing this research for the other woman, she remembered me. She said, Dr. Moore, I have a training director position available. I think you'll be perfect for it. I said, oh, Dr. Samples, I don't know. She said, just apply. You're perfect for it. I applied, I interviewed, and I'm here now. Both of those experiences were based on practicum opportunities that I had as a student. And it was because I took them seriously. I did the work. I did the best that I could for that level of training that I had. But apparently, it was enough to leave a lasting impression for them to remember me when opportunities came up in the future. So, when you're having these opportunities, do the internships, do the practicums, do the shadowing, offer your help. If they have a need and you believe you can meet it, offer it. Allow that experience to be the payout that you have because in the end, it will be meaningful. So I just had to go ahead and put that out there.
Great example. That's awesome. That's awesome.
We didn't even need Jeremy. We could have used that example and had the rest of this conversation because there's so much to unpack from that.
Man,
I am a really big proponent of do the thing. So it started with, I heard, do the thing that's uncomfortable. Like step out of your comfort zone, especially as a student. That is, that's as a student you have a little bit of privilege in that in stepping out, kind of doing the thing that's uncomfortable and saying, I'm a student. I haven't done this exact thing before. I haven't had this experience before, but I want to take this on, because then you're able to leverage that student or that trainee kind of title and ask questions. I mean, all of us can ask questions, of course, in our day-to-day lives and in our work, but as a student, people are much more open to saying, well, sit down, let's work shoulder to shoulder, and I'll show you how to do this, or I'll give you some guidance. So I heard, stepping out of your comfort zone, doing the thing that you're unfamiliar with, but you're willing to take on. And then a lot of times we always say that, you get opportunities and you get jobs based on who you know. And that is very true. I always also give a disclaimer that nobody's going to give you something. You still have to work for it and earn it and all of that. But just, I heard through the connections that you made and just honestly being very impressive and doing good work, it led to so many, it was like a snowball effect, and it all worked in your favor. Not every door may have been a yes all the time, but you can see how the connections were made. And I say to this day, the connections that I made back in undergrad working at my university, I can link everything to where I am now. And, undergrad was in Virginia. Here I am in Memphis, Tennessee, and I can make a straight line link between individuals that I've met and experiences that I've had that have gotten me here.
yeah, we definitely gonna have to play this back for our SCS students, just because you really want Dr. Whitaker, you laid out the plan for what they need. Dr. Moore, you gave them a real live example of how they do it, how what it looks like in real life. And then Key, you wrapped it all up, let them know that, this undergrad space, like the space that they're in now, is probably where they're gonna have the most connections. So now I appreciate that. And then my other takeaway was instead of going to spring break, so y'all hold off on Panama, hold off on going to turn up, at Daytona Beach in Miami, and go to San Francisco. So the AP, the annual meeting this year will be in San Francisco, California, May 16th through the 20th. Pull up in San Fran instead of going to the beach. She's saying that if you do your practical, or to simplify it, is basically just practicing your field and not learning in the classroom. You basically, it's like an internship. Like you basically doing some work. So don't let the word practical scare you, right? It's just you doing some work in your field that's not in the classroom, right? And you go do that in San Francisco. They got one in Austin. They got one in Atlanta. Detroit. And you probably can start that process that you just heard from Dr. Whitaker, Dr. Moore, and Kia. So, real quick, we're almost at time. Got a few minutes. So I do want to ask for the student that says, "Hey, you know what? I hear the PhD, the advanced degrees. I'm getting my undergrad. I'm trying to make it out of. I'm trying to make it out of here. What's the outlook for a student that's undergrad right now? Look, I barely made it to college. I'm just trying to get through the bachelor's. Like, what's the outlook, and what are some things that you would encourage that student who's they don't want to look that far down, or they just want to get what can I do once I get this bachelor's degree?
Did I get that question right? What can they plan to do after they get the bachelor's degree?
Yes, yeah. Like what are some career options that they can do? Just what's the words of advice from a career standpoint that they can do if they just want to get the bachelor's? They just want to get the bachelor's and keep moving in this
So
space.
that's interesting because I was going to ask Dr. Moore, Dr. Whitaker something similar to chime in on because a lot of what I'm hearing and being very honest from my experiences, there needs to be a plan for graduate level education. It is absolutely not impossible to work with only your bachelor's degree, but I love, if you recall, Dr. Moore started this like I wanted to also make sure I was getting what I was worth. I was getting the bag. And there is a correlation in this particular field, honestly, with making more money with higher levels of education. But again, not impossible to work. So I have a mentee that got her undergraduate degree in social work, and she worked for a while in was it children and like family services, and it was very difficult to move up.
Yeah. And now social work is a little different than psychology. So with social work, you can also be an LBSW, which is a licensed bachelor social worker. And so that's the one who has her bachelor's degree in social work. Again, you can't move up with the LBSW. Really, to really be able to have some flexibility in how you work and all the things you can do with social work, you need an LCSW. That's where that is. If you have a bachelor's in psychology, unless you want to, I'm gonna just be real frank. It ain't much
And be
nothing you
frank.
can do with a bachelor's degree in psychology. If you are majoring in psychology, it is because your plan is to do some type of secondary education, whether you want to go into law school, you want to do anything, whatever it is that you want to do. Because I have many of my peers from Spelman, they graduated with degrees in psychology, but they were like psych pre-law, and then they went on to law school, and then they passed the bar, and now they're attorneys. That happens. You have some people who get a bachelor's in psychology and then they go into school counseling and they become school counselors. You have other people like me who get their degree in psychology and we go all the way to the PhD. But if you have a bachelor's degree in psychology, your plan needs to be, okay, where am I going to graduate school? And what am I going to do for grad school? Now, before I started in my master's program, I was a teacher. So I had my bachelor's degree, psychology pre-med. I came home and I taught. So I taught for 5 years. Some of those years I was a substitute teacher. The last few, I was a seventh grade science teacher. Teaching was not my future. I love the children when I could teach them a dance step, but not in the classroom. Not my thing. Um, but it was a means to help me get to where I am now. So you could do that. That could be an option. But even with that, it takes more education because you have to have certain certifications and licenses to teach. So, all in all, you can get your bachelor's degree in psychology. You learn a lot of things. But if you really want to work as a professional in the field of psychology, you want to make sure you go ahead and I'm going to say this, not just stop at the master's in psychology, because with a master's degree in psychology, you can't even become a licensed psychologist. You can't even refer to yourself as a psychologist until you get your PhD in psychology and you obtain licensure. So if your plan is to get a BA or a BS in psychology so you can work as a psychologist. Your next step needs to be, okay, where am I going to go for grad school? Am I going straight into a PhD program, or do I want to get my master's in counseling first so then I can get my LPC and I can work and make a little money while I'm also getting my PhD? Like, what is it that I want to do? But you do want to talk with someone so that you can devise a plan. Because if you want, especially in today's economy, if you want to live a lifestyle where it feels like you actually did go and go to college with psychology, you're gonna need a graduate degree to accompany that bachelor's.
Yeah, Dr. Moore, thank you guys for just being transparent and really making this conversation what I call a hot one. That's honest, open, and transparent. And these students need to hear that. Um, because the reality of what you just said, Dr. Moore and Kia, about it, some fields is not a direct correlation. When you're talking about behavior health, psychology, social work, it is one of those ones that it is a direct correlation for, like you mentioned, certification, licensure, advanced degrees will help you be able to make and provide a lifestyle that you probably are hoping for. We're not trying to be the bearer of bad news. It's just the reality of it. We rather tell you on the front end, getting a bachelor's degree, and I see it all the time. The reality is your salary will not even eclipse what you probably took out in student loans if you didn't have scholarships. And that's, for me, is one of the biggest travesties to see people going to institutions. They get the rah-rah of the college experience and a sense of belonging, but you get out and the transition into the workforce, realizing you're in more debt than you will ever make enough salary to be able to get out of. And now that leads to your own behavior health, your own mental health, your own depression. And so please listen to that advice the ladies just gave you. Another thing I want to share, Jeremy, I didn't mention this on the front end, but this is another pathway. Here at University of Memphis and the College of Nursing, we have a graduate program, and it's a psych mental health nurse practitioner program. And I want to mention that because nursing is an option. We have an accelerated program, which means you don't have to have a bachelor's in nursing. You can have a bachelor's in psychology. We have 7 prerequisite classes that we require to be admitted into our program. I will take time outside of this. Calhoun can hook you up with me. I'll share my contact information, and I can share those 7 prereqs with you. So you can get a bachelor's in psychology, come to us, become a nurse. That accelerated program is 15 months, so it's fast-tracked. And then once you get that bachelor's, you can come to our master's program, which is psych mental health nurse practitioner. And let me tell you, we launched that program last year, and we're getting application in by the droves of people who are interested in getting that, because psych nursing is such a need right now. Particularly, you look at our minority populations where there's already stigma around help-seeking behavior, and we need you guys there. And you talk about a lifestyle. I got some of my psych nursing practitioners. Hey, they're doing therapy via virtual on the beach. We were talking about the beach earlier. And they got billing rates and insurance rates that allows them to work from anywhere in the world while providing that level of counseling. So know that's a route as well. And then to answer your question, Jeremy, about what could you do at the bachelor's level? Well, let's not discredit the opportunity to be an entrepreneur when it comes to social work. As I mentioned to you guys, I am not a licensed psychologist, a psychiatrist, a counselor. I am certified and doing different various trainings that are related to it, such as mental health first aid and those various things, ACEs, you name it. But the reality is I was able to connect, and I mentioned my mother earlier, who is licensed in all these different things, to look at what is the need in the community to provide a service that's a social work of non-emergency transportation in 3 states that we provided right in the Mid-South. And then this partnering with government entities like vocational rehab that works with different populations in various aspects. And it doesn't take a license necessarily in behavior health, but it does take a background to be able to understand how it all connects and works, and being able to communicate to be able to secure contracts where you can do direct billing and provide this wraparound support. So that still, you can do it with a bachelor's degree, but it takes in-depth knowledge or connecting with someone like a Dr. Moore or others who have those licenses where they're willing to work with you, partner. For example, we have support groups that we do, and we bring in professionals who can lead those support groups, and they're licensed to do so. So if you have that entrepreneurial mindset, that you're willing to negotiate and look at how contracts work, how does vendor services work, there's an opportunity there as well that you could do at the bachelor's level. But at the same time, if you don't have that in-depth experience and knowledge, or you're not connected with someone who is certified to do those things, then that can be limited as well. So I just want to, kind of give you another idea, opportunity, or window that is there through starting maybe nonprofit foundations or for-profits that can connect to the community or provide a service, but you're going to need to partner with licensed professionals as well.
No, thank you for that. And I love what you say. Honest, hot, honest, open, transparent conversations there. That's part of this as well. We part of these conversations came up because we heard students say, well, why didn't nobody tell me? And instead of giving all the reasons why somebody didn't, how do we be proactive and create platforms like this where, hey, let me just tell you the raw and real. Sometimes it's ugly. Sometimes it ain't what you thought. But the more honest and the more we can equip students with the information they need, it produces self-efficacy. It produces confidence and at least knowing and eliminating or minimizing surprises. And really it helps them believe in people. Because a lot of times like people just tell, you ain't gonna do it because you don't worry about it, you don't want to hurt your baby feelings. And I know like, man, if you would have just gave me that little extra piece of information, I would have went left. Right. So I appreciate the feedback that you all shared with us. We're gonna do a lightning round real quick because we got so many more questions that we need to hit on. Um, but I wanna see if we can get just one or two people to answer the question. We're gonna go to the next one. Um, what does the day in the life look like for you? When you think about this space, what does the day in the life look like for you? So give these students a peek into what a random Tuesday looks like for you.
That is not a lightning round question. I will say from the business but I'll make it really quick. From the business of healthcare, every day can be different, but there are some standard work. I deal a lot in money, so budgeting. That I'm in a budgeting season right now. So every day, not just a Tuesday, is very much of how much money do we have, how much money do we need, how much money am I asking for, so that the psychologist can do the great work that they're doing so that we can connect patients with the various resources that they need either here around town in Memphis or once they go back home to their home city and state. That's the best I could do for lightning with that question.
I try to go as quickly as I can too, because in my role as training director, I'm doing both clinical work and training and didactics and supervision. So, um, let's say during the day, I'm seeing patients. And so those patients could be previously scheduled on my, placed on my schedule, or a primary care provider could be in the room with someone and then they just burst into tears. And then they will say, Dr. Moore, I need you in room 2 in the purple pod. So then Dr. Moore is going to go to room 2 in the purple pod. When I get there, it could be just, some talk therapy, figuring things out. Or I could walk in the room and the patient could be sitting on the floor underneath the sink telling me that they see their dad outside the window with the whip. And so then that's a crisis situation. And now I have to tend to that crisis. And then after I'm doing that, seeing those patients, then I'll go into some supervision. And so that's when we talk with our interns and practicum students about the patients that they're seeing. So we're supervising their work with the patients that they're seeing. And then we also do some didactics. So that's like just teaching workshops where we have some type of topic, and then we just for 2 hours we teach students what this topic means as it pertains to primary health care, which is what we do. And then after that, I do supervision of supervision because my interns supervise my practicum students. And so then I have to supervise the supervision that they provide. And then on top of that, I'm also an adjunct professor at the University of Memphis. And so then I also go and I teach those students, and I'm teaching psychological assessment. So teaching them how to conduct cognitive assessments or personality assessments, what those means, what those mean, what they look like, how to, facilitate them, how to interpret them, how to write reports, all of that good stuff. So that's what like a week it could look like for me.
Got you. And I'll just say it quickly, Jeremy, similar to Dr. Moore and what Kia said, no one day is the same. It's about balance. So between the university and that full capacity, which comes at ebbs and flows of the academic year, for example, graduation's coming up next week. We have our nursing pinning ceremony. On the flip side of that, we'll have some students who did not do well academically. They might have failed 2 classes. In the nursing program, if you do so, you're academically disqualified. Hence, I put on that hat because I have students who sit across from me who view failing or being dismissed from the nursing program is as the finality. They tell me, hey, I don't want to live anymore. And I think it's the end. So my role in that capacity over the next couple of weeks will be helping them pivot from this shock of life to understanding this doesn't have to be fatal or final. How do we implement a level of resilience to pivot and find that next thing, whether it's going to health sciences and completing a degree there and various opportunities. On the flip side of that, the work I do weekly with the foundation involves connecting, making sure that our operations of transportation in those 3 states are going well. The employment services with those with disabilities, we do have a staff there that helps with that, but we have 5 counties in the state of Tennessee that we work and support. So it's about employing people in the right places that you can trust on your staff to do this work and develop these things. So it's that balance between being, as Dr. Moore put it, wearing multiple hats. But I would say this, doing all these things, it requires you to be able to take care of yourself as well. Self-care is so important. And so I try to employ that with the balance, gym regiment, giving myself that checkup from the neck up for that mental health check I need. So I just want to stress that while we're together, Jeremy, is in this scope of work, you will find yourself being the catch-all for so much from so many. So you have to employ and make a deliberate effort to have a relief for yourself. Dr. Moore says she likes nice things. So those nice things, and shopping might be her thing, and Kia might have her thing. For me, it's that gym, it's traveling, it's food, it's music, it's fun. But you have to put that in place so you can make sure you stay balanced as well. So that's kind of a day in the life. Not one is ever the same. But when you're doing something you love, it makes it so much easier.
Now look, y'all did that good, and y'all drop nuggets along the way. Let me ask you this: how has this career space or this career pathway evolved over the last few years, and where do you see it going in the next 5 to 10 years?
So I'll jump on and say with psychology in general, telehealth. 5 years ago was when it started. So when the pandemic hit and all of us were under quarantine, we were like, okay, how are we going to continue working? Everything was telehealth. And my entire internship was virtual. So we didn't see any patients in person because people didn't know what was going on with COVID. And so the field has evolved tremendously to a point where now we can provide these services to so many people in so many areas. If people live in the rural areas and they can't get to, a clinic to seek care, we can meet with them via their cell phones. So you just tell them, hey, I'm going to send you a link, log on, and we can meet. So I think, telehealth with technology has really pushed the field forward from their point of view in a positive way. I mean, you have some stuff with like AI and social media and pop psychology, not so positive. But if you want to just stay on, what's really helpful and what helps us as, practitioners to be able to conduct therapy from your dining room table. Like I've been sick this week. I didn't want to call off work because I have a problem, but I worked from home. And so I was able to still see my patients, while I was sitting at home trying to feel well. So telehealth has really been a thing that we've seen that's really pushing the field forward.
Yeah, I'll add to that. She's spot on when she's talking about telehealth, which is definitely that's the future. It is being able to provide and seek help from anywhere, anytime. And it's pushing that construct for every organization, every university or college in the nation is now having to offer these type of support services because as I tell students, you're already paying for it. Look at your bill you get from every university and college. That health services fee is on that bill. So whether you use it or not, you're paying for it. So take advantage of everything you're already being, charged and invested in. Another thing to think about that really kind of solidifies Dr. Moore's point. When you guys are negotiating for jobs and getting employed now, take notice to your health benefits. and what now these organizations are willing to support and put into your insurance packages. Mental health and wellness, along with physical health. All this now is stuff that you should be asking about when you're looking at employment. Get beyond the salary, because I know STS is going to prepare you to know that gross and that net ain't the same thing. It's different. And after, Uncle Sam tap into it a little bit and every other deduction, and we're in America. Health insurance and what it costs, you can do your research and you can see the attack on access. And so be knowledgeable, do your homework. If you're using AI, as Dr. Moore mentioned, it'll break it down for you real quick. You have other countries where healthcare is free. Not here. But as you negotiate for employment and these different things, it'll show you the future of it, Jeremy, because where things are invested. If you want to see where people are invested, or what people care about, look at where they're investing their funds, their budgets. And so telehealth and the future of innovation is definitely where it's at. And you should know how to negotiate that into when you go on and take a job as well, because that's important.
Dr. Whitaker took a little piece of my answer, but it was actually a great segue. Now, Jeremy, the original question was along the lines of like what differences have we seen over the past 5+ years in the field? And I will say, from the business perspective, I've always managed teams, so I've always had a great group of people that I've worked with, and I would say especially the past 5 years, since about 2020. I tell my teams, in addition to health benefits and utilizing what is available to them, that's a part of their compensation package. Guess what else is? Your leave. What, use your vacation time. You don't feel well? Use your sick time, because we have built a highly effective team and we can cover. We can get the things done that still need to be done. So I've seen that change over the years, ever since the pandemic and even a little before, just because I think institutionally, organizationally, we're in tune with self-care and, our own mental health and things like that. So I think that that's a little more apparent than it used to be years back, that the employee, so to speak, they have to take care of themselves in order to be able to take care of the customers, the patients, the clients, whatever. So.
Hey, Kia, I just want to say this real quick, Jeremy, before you pivot. You made a good point, and I do this with my staff and my team. It's outside of the regular PTO, but it's called mental health days. I give them one a month, just a mental health day. But you can ask that, because that's something we're seeing more popular now as well, is having mental health days packaged into your leave time, where it's literally, I'm not working remote. I'm not doing it. This is my mental health day. And so that's something you guys should note as well.
And even the flexibility of working remote. We did it during the pandemic. Most places did it well. I know that there's been a big push to roll that back in certain organizations, but being able to have that flexibility. My team, if someone just needs to wait for, I always give the example, you're waiting for your new refrigerator to be delivered. And of course, they give you that window of time. We'll be there sometime between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., and it's like, man, I don't have someone to sit at the house all day long and wait for this. You can work. They can work remote. We can be flexible and still accomplish what we need to accomplish. So I think flexibility, understanding one's own personal health and mental health, like those are things that are a little more, that they're prioritized more now than they were in the past.
And I
Yeah.
have to say this, because both Dr. Whitaker and Kia mentioned it, taking care of yourself. Now I mentioned that I sometimes struggle. I have a problem. Sometimes I don't know when to quit. Even though my manager was like, Dr. Moore, just chill. And I was like, no. One of the things that I noticed different, even within organizations, is that you have a leadership who really cares about your well-being. And so when people are saying, take a day, take care of yourself, feel better, actually do that. We don't have to act like the workers of the 90s. We don't have to work ourselves, to death. We don't have to do that. And that's something that's really changing, because most organizations really didn't give two craps about you personally years ago. But now I think because of, the attention that has been brought upon mental health and people getting a better understanding of it, people understand that sometimes you're not well because you're stressed. And that is impacting your ability to function. And you do need a day. So take it.
Look, I feel like now y'all sound like my wife and my team telling me, Jeremy, hey, check out. As long as I'm on that computer. So I'm gonna take my I'm gonna take me a mental health day on Sunday. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna build it into the calendar. But that and Dr. Moore, that led into my next question. Again, I just want to get some of these important questions in. Um, how do you maintain boundaries to protect your mental health when your job is centered around helping others? Like, how do you all do that?
You called her out, so I'm gonna let her go first. Then I hop on. I hop on afterward.
I'm not gonna lie, y'all. It can be difficult. I'm a lot better at it now than what I used to be. But doing this work every day, you hear so many things. And sometimes when you're listening to people's experiences, you're like, oh my God, is this a Tubi movie? Is this a Lifetime movie? And it is not. These are people's real lives, and they are really impacted. And sometimes you can become vicariously traumatized to hearing all of these experiences. And in the past, because I care about people so deeply and I'm so empathic, I'll find myself waking up in the middle of the night out of my sleep praying for people. Um, and while it's important in here in the role that I have now, we get to pray with our patients because we do integrate faith into their healing, their treatment. Um, really, the thing that I had to tell myself was, Kanisha, this is their life. If they can live it every day, surely you can be okay hearing about it for 45 minutes every couple weeks. And I really just had to, I couldn't internalize it anymore. I had to leave it in the space. And once I exited the space, I had to leave the issue behind. And then I'm also a dancer. So I take different dance classes and I teach dance to kind of, that's my safe space to, get myself regulated because it is very difficult. Um, but all in all, is their life. You have to allow people to live their life. If you're a person of faith, pray, get that thing to God, and go on about your business. And that's the best. That's the way that I've here recently. That's what I've been doing to kind of, you know, create some space and take care of myself after hearing so many hard things all day.
Love that. I'll just add to it. I think she's spot on when it's, I would say this, you have to understand that boundaries are necessary and it's better that you set them because if not, you will find out how it will impact your life. Um, and your loved ones, the ones you are primarily responsible for outside the professional lines, because the reality is your loved ones, they don't see you. They're happy that you're Dr. Moore, Dr. Whitaker, Kia. They're happy of that, but they just want Kanisha, Jeremy, Kia. They just want Jeremy. And so you don't want the ones that matter to you the most outside of the professional lines to be impacted because you cannot let it go, because you cannot separate it. And so I think that's why it's important to, one, have a keen sense of self-awareness, because if you don't have that, you will find yourself running that non-ending, rat race of being Superman or Superwoman. And what you realize is some things are systemic. And when you look at holistic wraparound care, it's so much more than the individual. It is generational. It is environmental. It's so many things. And as an individual, you can impact change in a positive way, but it can be a negative impact on yourself if you try to take on the whole system as a crusader by yourself. So you have to have that balance of boundaries and having those things where you unplug. And whether that's you managing your time that way via your calendar, or you naturally can feel within yourself when you're getting to a point that you need to check out. You have to have that self-awareness. So that's how I do it, Jeremy. I similar to Kanisha for years, I found myself stretching beyond where there was no clock out time, there was no hour. But then when you begin to see how it can impact those around you that you love the most, because time is the one thing you can't get back. It's great accolades, it's great, all these different things. But if you're not spending time doing the things you really feel by and the ones that you love the most, what are you really doing? And so I just think that's important.
For me, being a leader and sometimes having very large groups that I was leading, needing to be everything for everyone all the time. Like I was everyone's person, and you're getting all these different stories. Something that I do is I do something not work related, something for me that I enjoy. And that's actually how I got linked up with STS. I was previously an academic advisor. I loved working with that student population, and I really student development is a passion for me, so I love doing that. Someone would say, well, isn't that work too? I enjoy it. So this is the thing that I get to do that takes me away from the work. So finding something that takes you away from the work. I mean, I was a tennis player. I used to play tennis all the time. I still go to the gym. So something outside of work that is just for you or just for something that you really enjoy. You could be spending time with family. For me, that's more decisions. I end up being the person for all those people too. So that isn't always the most relaxing time, but just finding something outside of the work. And then for some of my psychologists and some of my therapy friends, like therapist friends, I know that they speak to a counselor or a therapist themselves to kind of offload and just decompress.
Happy you said that, Kia. I agree. I mean, we're talking about us being the ones people seeking help from, but that's the best thing I could ever done myself. In someone that I had no personal connection with at all can give me a complete unbiased scope of support, especially for minority men and men in general. Jeremy, we got to keep pushing that message of increasing help seeking behavior and fighting against that stigma of men seeking help. That's not just physical, but also mental behavior and
Yeah.
overall wellness.
Yeah, nah, man. Y'all, look, I had my, well, one, I love all the boundaries that you all set up. Definitely important. Kid, we thank you that we're your outlet. Please don't ever change. I hope that we stay your outlet as long as you're here in Memphis, forever. And I thank each of you. You all have always been supportive of STS. I will say when I got my therapist, man, she was so cool. I thought we could be friends outside of the session. She said, "No, baby, that ain't how this works." I she put that boundary up so quick. I said, I thought we had some." She said, "Nah, when this is over." I said, "Okay, yes, ma'am, I understand." That means the job well done. But to that job well done for each of you, I know the individuals that'll watch this, they are going to get a wealth of knowledge from all the information that you all have shared. I just want to give you time to share any final words, share how they can connect with you, whether it's on LinkedIn or whatever platform that you prefer. Want to, of course, give you all your flowers. Again, thank you so much for your time. And I'll let each of you end it off by sharing that information. Anybody want to kick us off?
I can.
All right.
So, my final word, so you want to be a psychologist. Know that the work you're doing is good work, but it's also hard work. And it takes a lot of hard work to get there. And then once you get there, that's just the beginning of more hard work. So, make sure this is something that you're passionate about before you pursue it. And if you want to connect with me, ask any more questions, you can always shoot me an email at klmore30@gmail.com.
Got you.
That's
Thank
that
you.
real email too. That's what I got right there. So she giving y'all the real email. Okay. Okay.
Uh, yeah, I'll
All right.
piggyback on that, Dr. Moore. Thank you. And she mentioned how it's hard work, and that's very true. But I want to leave you guys with the complement of that, which is making sure it is a part of your heart work from your heart, because it is going to be hard somewhat. But anything that's worth having or attaining is worth working hard for. But this is a field, my friend. If it is not truly from the heart, or you're not truly passionate about it, burnout is real. And it could be a whole nother session, Jeremy, on burnout and doing these type of things. So please know that. Similar to her, if you want to connect with me on platforms, you can connect. The website is drjpurposepage.com. On IG is Dr. J Purpose Pays. On LinkedIn as well is Dr. Jeremy N. Whitaker. So any of those platforms we can connect, or just hit up Jeremy Calhoun. He'll get you with me directly as well, particularly if you're interested. And I talked about some of the nursing options. So whatever I can do to help you, I'm willing to do so. But as I said, make sure this is something that in the field, whatever it is, we talked about the limitless opportunities, but something you truly are in love and passionate about, and reach out to get some mentors and champions where you can learn as much as possible early on, so you don't bump your head in places that maybe we have before.
We are all on the same wavelength. My final kind of recap would be to really hone in on making those connections. Reach out to people in the field and ask to have just an informational interview. Can I get 20 minutes on your calendar to talk about what you do? I've had people do that with me quite a bit because they say, well, you're not a psychologist by trade, but you work with them. Like, what do you do? And I love that question. And I get to kind of run through it and see if there's a connection there. So I say find people that are willing to support your journey as a student and be intentional. That's the main thing is that just be intentional, even if it's just with I'm gathering information, I'm doing research, I'm trying to determine what I am passionate about and what my future may look like. If you say that, that tells me that you are intentional, you're taking this serious, and yes, I can absolutely find 20, 30 minutes on my calendar. I can absolutely connect you with someone. Because I work with psychologists, I have connected students with psychologists so that they can do informational interviews and find out more about the field. So, with that, same as most others, but you can find me on LinkedIn via my name. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much. That is our time. Again, my name is Jeremy Calhoun, president and co-founder of SCS Enterprise, where we are Memphis's innovation company around helping teenagers and young adults get into careers that allow them to live lives they can be proud of. Again, I want to thank our presenting sponsor for this entire series, Carpenter Law. Really appreciate all of their support, making sure that we're really helping young people uh, in one of the biggest decisions of their life that they ever make, and that's choosing a career. So thank you to our sponsor, Carpenter Law. Thank you to each of you for your time on today. Hope you enjoy your Friday. Stay warm. And that is another session of So You Want to Be. You all have a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much. Take care.